Hello, my name is Anthony, your host of Lead with Curiosity. Welcome to another episode of the pod. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Daniel Barnes, Director and Financial Analyst at Barnes Wealth Management. And the reason I'm so keen to sit down with Dan is there's a lot of myths around what exactly does a financial planner do and who should benefit from that. So we're going to sit down, have a chat and try and burst some of those myths. So enjoy the episode. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today. Really pleased to have you as our guest on the pod. Let's start at the beginning with a bit of background. So you used to be a teacher. How does a teacher become a financial advisor?
Yeah, whenever I reveal that to people, it surprises some people and it doesn't surprise others. So I was a teacher. I came out of university and went into teaching for about 5 years, primary school. So the top end of primary school. Very lovely school, very lovely people. And got to the point where, like many teachers, sadly, I got to a point where I was saying, well, do I want to go into senior leadership? Do I want to be a manager of teachers? And I kind of realized what I loved doing was explaining things to people, concepts, getting to know people, building trust, and all of that. And my father, of course, ran his own business, which started in 2011, and I joined him in October 2015. So left teaching with mixed emotions, but kind of never looked back. Went and did some admin for Dad, who was working all on his own at that point in Barnes Wealth Management, and then essentially trained within a couple of years and have been advising since 2017. So, 10, 11 years in the business now and never really looked back. And from my point of view, the transferable skill is expressing things to people in a way that they can understand and they can kind of enjoy the process of having a meeting as well. So, yeah.
Super. And it's a family business, right? So your brother also works for the practice. Am I right in saying?
It is indeed a family business. My sister, bless her, lives all the way up in Newcastle, so we couldn't drag her into the fold. She's got her own thing. But myself and my brother are in the business now as owners and directors. We have 2 other financial advisors who are fantastic and a team. So there are 10 of us in total. So yeah, it's great. And based in Buckingham, but operate Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire, London. And we have a huge swath of clients down in Surrey who seem to keep duplicating themselves by introduction. So yeah, that's us.
In terms of the financial advice, I speak to a lot of people from a coaching perspective, and there seem to be a lot of myths around what does a financial wealth planner do. So, just to, I guess in simple terms, from your perspective, who would benefit, who should benefit from seeking financial advice?
Yeah, it's a frustrating question to answer in the position that we now find ourselves as a practice, because in my view, everybody should have a financial planner.
Okay.
And I mean everybody. The reason being, there are so many things about your life plan, your future, that depend on you gaining wealth, building up financial resilience, protecting yourself from financial disaster, but also, of course, growing wealth. Almost all of the things you can think of that are the aspirational things for your life actually do depend on you building some level of wealth and doing it in a proper manner. The way that the industry of financial planning is now set up is such that different practices, different companies have to kind of set broad boundaries around what level of investment, for example, and what level of financial planning are we going to offer. So our practice focuses generally on anything around $250,000 and above in terms of clients' funds that we're managing and looking after. And the higher up that scale we go, generally, the more complex the planning tends to become, because it's all around intergenerational wealth and things like that. But a lot of our clients are business owners, and therefore they don't turn around and say, here's £250,000 or £1 million.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, because this perception of £250,000, most people don't just have £1 million, £500,000, £250,000, whatever, lying around. So are you talking, is that in terms of assets or?
Yeah, for us, the ideal client for us is in that bracket of above £250,000 in terms of money that we can manage for them. That's where we can add the most value for clients. But in terms of meeting a business owner, they're unlikely to turn around and say, here's $250,000 cash that I just had lying around ready for you to invest. I think one of the myths and issues is that people are thinking, well, financial planning is only for the very wealthy. But the problem with that, the kind of paradox is most people don't suddenly become very wealthy.
Right.
And of course, that's a spectrum in itself, but they don't suddenly do that. It's something that builds up over time. And therefore, my question would be, at what point then do you actually contact a financial planner? And my view would be as early as possible, find one you like the sound of and have a chat with them. If we come across clients for whom we're not a particularly good fit because of their current circumstances, we will always be able to refer them on to someone who is happy to help and will be fantastic. And we've obviously pre-screened those people as well. We know who we're talking to.
Yeah. So again, just give me a feel for if someone were to call you, what's the process? Because again, there's this big, what am I supposed to prepare? Am I supposed to know all my numbers? Just give me a feel for what that looks like.
Anthony, you would be shocked. You as a prepared person would be shocked to know how it sometimes turns out. We'll talk to people who are CEOs in London or business owners of many, many years, or extremely wealthy people or successful people in their own right. In my experience, the more dialed in a person is in their own industry or in their own area, the less dialed in their finances might well be, because they've been so focused on growing wealth, building their income, doing all the things in their life. So no, we absolutely don't expect people to come to us with a fully formed idea. It's also surprising, actually, the number of people who come to us and sort of say, well, how can we help you? And they don't really express an accurate goal. They just know they should do something.
Right.
I need to, and part of my job is unearthing what are we actually aiming at then.
Okay.
Very briefly though, on the process point, it's very simple. We have an initial conversation of about 15 minutes just to kind of get to know you. Are we a good fit? Let me understand a bit more about you. We ask clients to give us some information. It's not a great big long questionnaire, but some basic information so that we can then have an in-depth meeting, whether it's face-to-face or on video. And that's a much more of a deep dive in what are your goals, what are your ambitions, where are you trying to get to, because everybody is different and we don't want a cookie cutter approach. It's lots of, you wouldn't believe it by how much I'm talking now, but it's lots and lots of me shutting up and listening and writing things down and making sure I understand exactly what the client wants. And then from there, we go away and build sort of proposals along with kind of a laundry list of things that a client may not have thought of that they should absolutely be considering, along with the things that they'll have definitely said, I'd like to achieve X, Y, and Z. And then from there, if a client wants to work with us long term, we are all about long-term relationships with clients. We don't do individual, I'll just put this here and then good luck, I hope you enjoy the rest of your life. It's a long-term financial relationship, partnering with the client to try and continually improve, because of course the world out there, the investment markets and the client's life themselves will change all the time. So at least annually we'll see all our clients, some of them much more often than that and as needed.
I mean, I remember one of the things you saying to me when we first met as well is it's tempting to, because you create this amazing dashboard with colors and it's a very visual thing, which can be quite scary, but also very helpful looking forward, as we were chatting about before we started recording.
Yeah.
But one of the things I remember you saying is it's tempting to look at the numbers on a daily basis and almost react to what's going on. What would you say to people that are in that kind of headspace?
I would say it's a human instinct to try to control as much as you possibly can for most of us. And I'm always in admiration of the clients who are disciplined enough to say, I haven't even checked it since last time we sat down, Dan.
Right.
There are many, and the problem with technology is, of course, it's incredibly easy to flick open your phone and then you go through the cycle of, I'll check my WhatsApp, I'll check my Instagram, I'll check the football scores, and now I'll check my investments. So the reminder that I give to all clients on that is the average number of or percentage of days throughout a calendar year in which the market is red compared to the previous day, i.e. down compared to the day before, is 48% of the days of the year. So if you want a recipe for feeling pretty miserable in your life 50% of the time, check your investment portfolio every day, because every other day you're going to be disappointed, albeit with all that factored in, around 4 out of every 5 calendar years is a positive return. And if I look at our clients' returns over the last few years, 2022 is a bit of an outlier if you recall Russia, Ukraine, and all of that. But it's been a really good period. So the less you check, the happier you will be. And I don't say that with any ulterior motive. It just is going to make you happier.
That's quite reassuring to hear. You mentioned earlier everybody should have a financial advisor, and you also said when do you start, and you said as early as possible. So what are the sort of habits that people should be getting into from the early stage?
Okay, yeah. So early stage financial planning, step one for me is I've read Atomic Habits. If you haven't read Atomic
James Clear,
Habits, read
great
Atomic
book.
Habits. I don't know which camera I'm looking into. Read Atomic Habits. It's mandatory. But one of the things that he says in there is that you need to make habits that you want to form as easy as possible.
Mm-hmm.
One easy formable habit is automating things. So if I have a business owner client who wants to put money into their pension, and they think generally what I'd like to do is do roughly this large amount at the end of my company year, my suggestion to them usually is, if cash flow permits, let's drip feed as much of that as possible throughout the year. Make it comfortable for you, but drip feed that in. You never see it. It comes off out of your business profits before corp tax, no national insurance, no income tax, straight into your pension, and you never see it. So therefore, it just lands in there. And often clients get surprised as to how much they've been building up with all the growth as well, by doing that automation. So automating savings, if nothing else, but automating some sort of savings or investment plan is a really good shout. The other thing is to just what I find is a lot of clients, when they first come to us, we've asked them to gather some information for us, and it's the first time they've actually pulled that information together in 20 years.
Right.
And they go, oh my God, I've suddenly realized how much we're spending per month. And I've realized that my income is by far and away the breadwinner income of the two of us. And therefore, what happens if I'm off work? And suddenly these realizations happen, and forcing themselves to do that as a habit, and maybe a monthly check-in on what's being spent and what's being saved, it is good. And again, back to James Clear, make it easy and make it attractive, I think, is one of his rules.
That's right.
So I was thinking this. I was in the gym this morning. I was training legs. I hate doing that because it's really, really painful. So what I do, like a child, is buy myself a can of energy drink that tastes like grape soda, and I bring that in with me, and I think this is going to make it just that little bit more palatable. So it's the same thing, I think. Invest. If you have a favorite type of coffee, go to that coffee shop once a month, sit down, open your laptop, do your finances whilst drinking the sugariest, most expensive coffee you can find. And I'm telling you now that £5 or £6 you've spent on that is going to be well invested when you look back and figure out you've actually now got a financial plan that you've just started to put together. So make it a habit if you possibly can.
Great advice. Thank you for sharing that. You also mentioned that a lot of your clients are business owners, and we share that. So again, I end up talking to a lot of business owners about finance as part of the conversation. So from a business owner perspective, are there any things that they should be considering from a financial point of view? And I guess I'm not just talking wealth, I'm talking protection as well. What are the sort of, are there any tips you can share around that?
For sure. So the thing with business owners is that state the obvious. They're not employed, and therefore they're not generally offered the sort of benefits that one might be. If you work for Lloyd's Bank, then you're going to get pension put away for you. You're going to be offered private medical cover. You're going to have sick pay that covers you for 70% of your earnings for a year or whatever it might be if you're off work. You have death in service. So if you die, your husband or wife will get a load of money landing in trust for them and the family. When you work for yourself, as we both do, none of that applies. It's on you. Mm-hmm. So you do not have a sick pay policy. You don't have any level of protection. So if we start with the very ground floor, I often describe it to clients as your financial plan is built on, first of all, the protection that you have. That's the bedrock of your financial plan. Income protection is one that is underthought about by clients. Everyone thinks about life insurance, right? Because they see the little Vitality dog running around and they want the Apple Watch. But income protection is incredibly powerful. The reason being, if you imagine, as a listener to the podcast, that in your living room there is an ATM machine and it's sat in the corner all the time, printing £4,000 a month, and it just spits £4,000 in cash a month out. Would you spend £100 a month to ensure that machine keeps spitting £4,000 a month out?
It's a no-brainer, right?
It is. People insure their pets, they insure their cars, they insure their house. They do not insure their own income. So income protection does precisely that. You are buying yourself sick pay, and you are that for, if in case you hadn't noticed, you're the machine that spits out that amount or whatever it is. So that's step one. The other thing is realizing we both have children, how quickly time goes. You start realizing it when you have kids, but the earlier you start anything, whether it's investing, pensions, and building things like that, the less you have to do long term. And it's a really simple rule, but people don't tend to get it until you really explain it, which is that if you start building towards a retirement goal from 40, it is a hell of a lot harder, and you're going to have to put in more in total than you would if you started at 25. Now, that's easy for me to say, but actually just building that habit of just dripping something in.
Say we're back to the atomic habits and,
and
the compound factor. And again, you blew my mind with the compound thing when we first met. Just at a really high level, explain the compound factor to me if you can.
Yeah, compounding. So fundamentally, if something grows at 7% a year, just as an example, so 7% net per year or so, then it's going to double every decade. One of the ones we tell people as well, so we have some clients, I'd say maybe 20% of my clients are in the older set, let's say. They're well into retirement and they're thinking about the next generation. More importantly, actually, they're usually thinking about the generation beyond that, because they like their kids, but they really like their grandkids. and what they are trying to do as a general rule often is make gifts to the grandkids that will be meaningful. One of the things that some of them do is pay into a pension for their grandchildren out of their annual gifting allowance of $3,000 a year. They can do that, no problem. They can pay into a pension for their grandchildren, even if their grandchild's a baby at the time. And if you do that, fundamentally, if you do that, it's about £5 a day is
okay,
the
so
number we use.
We're not talking megabucks,
not talking masses, totally within the budget for these people. £5 a day all the way through to the age of 10, and then you just stop at the age of 10. You stop paying in, and by the time that child turns 60, 65, something around that age, they're going to have £1 million pension pot because of the power of compound growth. That's
£1 million.
£1 million in the pension, yeah. Which is quite a gift to give to someone, because then they'll never have to do their own saving into their pension, so they can spend all the money they earn. It also does the delayed gratification message to that grandchild and says, I'm not giving you a trust fund of £200,000 right now for you to blow in Las Vegas or wherever, but I am building you a future so that you can be creative and enjoy your life as a working person. And I think that's amazing. I've got plenty of clients who do that.
That's incredible. And then it takes the pressure off from a...
It does, yeah.
Because it's a classic thing, isn't it? When you basically don't have enough money, that's when you need the money. In theory, when you get to retirement and beyond, that's when perhaps you don't need as much money and you've got more there. So it's just that.
It's a balancing act, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I'm curious to learn more about the business. You mentioned the family business, and you said that you're now a director and a partner. Part of that's down to the fact that your father retired last year, I think I'm right in saying.
Christmas, yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah, so we're sort of 6 months in, yeah.
So if you don't mind me asking, well, I just did, more to what I'm about to.
Yeah.
That transition from joining from an admin perspective to becoming an advisor to now being a partner, what's that transition been like for you?
Bliss. We've changed the locks. He's not allowed. No. He does. He turned up yesterday.
I'm sorry, Nick, if you're listening. I'm sure that's not the case.
He turns up fairly regularly, telling us he needs to do some printing, but I know he's keeping an eye on us. It always seems to be when I'm there anyway. But no, so my dad has been in finance for his entire working life, and he's been an incredible influence on myself, my brother, and the wider team. The other two advisors particularly, I think, really do look up to Nick in the same way that myself and my brother do. I certainly noticed when he left the things that he was doing that he was just quietly getting on with and doing.
Okay.
So he's a very sort of stoic, calm, measured individual. Tom and myself have my mother's genetics as well, which maybe means we're not quite the same as Dad, although we try to be. But one of the things that we put in place before Nick's exit, about 6 months in advance, was we brought in a very, very good operations manager. As you know, we have a wonderful team already. They
Yeah, you
would
do,
run
and
themselves
we
quite
do
well.
need to shout them out because they are. I can speak from first-hand experience. They are incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, no, they're brilliant, and they'll like to hear that, and I will force this podcast onto them, so they'll hear it. But no, we brought on an amazing operations manager, Claire. She came in. She had experience at various places, Share Centre, Goldman, I think. She's run some very big teams, and she's now come in to run our smaller team. So she's got a smaller group of people to deal with, but a very intense role, because we basically tasked her with people, policies, processes on day
Okay.
one, and just said, look, we would like you to have these in your mind. And I think one of the things that we did well, which my dad has always done really well, is empowered her immediately and said, look, you are a much better manager than myself and Tom are ever going to be. We know that. We realize that what we want to be is a financial advisor to our clients, and we want to be visionaries for where the practice is going. That's what we want to do. Here are the things that you should do. And really funnily, in her interview, she said to me, are there any aspects of Barnes Wealth Management that you don't like? And I said, yeah, everything we're getting used to do. Because of the fact that we recognized that was the way forward. And my dad has always been the same. He's realized that when Tom and I came to him with an idea of how we could take things, or what we could do to enhance client experience, or improve things in the practice, he was always open to saying, yeah, no problem, have a go, rock and roll. And giving that responsibility to Claire has been great, because she's brought in all sorts, even in the, what's it now, she's just coming up to a year she's been with us. So yeah, it's been brilliant.
I find it really interesting that some of the people we've spoken to on the pod and some of the successful businesses that we work with, they're very clear and defined about what their roles are and where you add value. And I think it's a really smart thing to do, to say that's not something that I'm great at or enjoy or want to do, but let's bring in an expert. Was that a conscious decision when you brought Claire in, or was that something you realised once she'd first joined, of just how much she could kind of take off your plate?
It was 100% a conscious decision, and I would say it's a bit of a privilege, actually, of getting to a stage as a business that we can afford to bring in an operations manager, but b we recognize that we have elements of our role that we are fantastic at, or we think we're fantastic at least, and elements that we're not so good at. So it was absolutely deliberate. I think once you've got that person through the door, we gave Claire, I think we said 3 months of almost carte blanche, and just said, look, you are in discovery mode to start with. I almost don't want to see you build. There's low hanging fruit, right? That you can change and influence, but we don't want to see massive changes immediately. What I want you to do is assess everything and really get to know every individual person, and people, policies, and processes. Really get under the skin of it. And yeah, it's. I certainly see it as good self-awareness to know I do not enjoy looking at HR policies.
Shame on you,
you can
Daniel.
watch myself and my brother be reading through a contract that Claire's put together for somebody, and you can tell immediately we're disinterested by this. And what Claire's very, very perceptive at as well is how to deal with individuals in the team. So we've done insights training for all of our team, including Claire. And we'll do it for everyone that we bring on as well, and interview.
Again, just for those that have never heard of Insights,
so insights is, I think there's another one called DISC.
That's right.
But it's sort of character. You're better than me at this, Anthony.
Okay, so effectively, it's based on research by Carl Jung. How do people get on and how do people communicate?
Yeah.
So the insights profile that you've mentioned is color based.
Yeah.
So essentially, on the left hand side of it, it's always a 4-box grid for some reason. I have no idea what the obsession is with 4 boxes, but the left hand side is kind of more, I guess, task focused. The right hand side more people focused. And it's a bit like going abroad, right? If you're going to go to France, maybe speak a few words of French, but don't feel you've got to go full method and national costume and and so on.
For sure. Yeah. So when we ran that insights training, Claire has read everybody's report. We all share them with one another. So we try to communicate with one another in the best way possible. And whilst obviously I don't run insights reports on all of my clients. I do have in the back of my mind when I'm working with those people, you feel as though you lead with blue, which is very detail focused, very numbers focused, and therefore they have a blue mark at the top of their notes page for me, which
So
means
you actually do that, right?
I need to remember that this person really does value me coming incredibly well prepared on the numbers. There are other clients of mine who barely glance at the data and I'm much more interested in, but where are we with the broad goal? Are we still on track? Or red people, just get to the point, Dan. I don't want to sit here for 40 minutes with you. We could do a 10-minute chat.
Right.
Just get to the point. And it's all about that. So Claire came in and understood that from the off and has already introduced things within our practice, within our team as a manager, that are really helping us to develop the team as much as anything else.
So I love the fact you've used that tool not only to communicate internally but also externally as well. That's superb. What are the future plans for the business? What does that look like in terms of
future plans for the business? So it's somewhat up in the air. We're 6 months into running it as we are. Our objective is to continue bringing on more clients that we really like and enjoy working with. I won't say the phrase, but we have the New Zealand rugby team rule as well. Like, we work with people we want to work with, and they want to work with us. And it's a really nice way to do it. I mean, to a man and woman, we really genuinely enjoy spending time with our clients and getting to know them, and we care about their results. So it's more of that. We've got capacity within the 4 advisors that we have. There may be room in future for further advisors and team members and things like that. We've not got some take over the world growth plan where we're going to become some giant bucket shop. We like the fact that we're a small family run firm with a sort of comfortable feel, albeit with a very robust investment engine alongside us. But yeah, that's it really. We do know what our goals are longer term, but I think it's more just about keep doing. I said this to one of our advisors the other day. He's now got it as his screensaver on his phone, which is do the right thing as often as possible, and good things will follow. And that's what he's got to say.
I love that. So if anybody listening is thinking, it's probably time to look at my finances, dust out the files, or just to sit down and have a conversation, bearing in mind within that kind of spectrum that you described earlier.
Yeah.
So again, your ideal client base being a business owner or somebody with a minimum of £250,000 in wealth, in assets,
which is a shade of grey.
Of course. Yeah. So if I'm start thinking that's possibly me, how do I contact you? What would that look like?
Yep. So we have hopefully you're able to link to our website. There's loads of inquiry stuff on there and contacting. It should be very, very easy to get hold of us. We're on Google with some very nice reviews on there as well. So it's Barnes Wealth Management. I'm on LinkedIn, Daniel Barnes, as are the other advisors as well. So any way you want to try and get hold of us, that's fine.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure we share the website and your LinkedIn profile in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
Superb. It's been an absolute pleasure. As you're aware, I know you're an avid listener of the pod, so thank you for your support on that. We ask every guest exactly the same question to close. The pod is called Lead with Curiosity. So what are you curious about learning or doing next?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about a book already. And when I say, I don't know how many other people will relate to this, but when I say I've read a book, I've never read the book. I've always listened to the book on Audible. But I am rereading a book at the moment called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. And it's that is a book that has drawn me back in, because I think I need reminding at least once a year to bring myself back to what is essential and to cut out some of the fat around the edges in terms of what I might be doing in my professional life, what the company might be doing. You will have heard of the Pareto distribution.
80-20 rule.
80-20, right? 20% of the actions you take, 20% of the customers you have, 20% of the things that you do will yield 80% of the results. Therefore, by definition, there'll be a big swath of things that you are doing as a company or as an individual that are maybe not yielding what you need them to do. So trying to reassess that through the lens of reading that book. It's an incredibly useful book. And it talks about things like deep work and how to focus in on the right things for a business owner or just for an individual. If you've read Atomic Habits and you liked it, Greg McKeown, Essentialism is your next listen, because no one reads anymore.
It's a great tip. it's added to my list. Daniel, thank you so much.
You're
Really
welcome.
enjoyed speaking with you.
Good to see you. Cheers.
So my thanks to Dan for his time in today's episode. Lots to unpack and take away. The thing that really resonated with me, though, was there's never a definitive time of when to start financial planning. In fact, if you remember, he said the best time to start is sooner rather than later, and get into some of those earlier habits that he referenced. So my thanks as always to you for listening and for your kind comments. If you've not already done so, please hit the follow button, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode.